Good evening, and welcome to this candidate forum for the Saratoga City Council. There are 5 candidates running for the 3 open seats, and all are present tonight. My name is Sophia Cao, President of the League of Women Voters, Southwest Santa Clara Valley. So our league covers the cities of Los Gatos, Saratoga, Montecito, Campbell, and a segment of West San Jose. First, I would like to thank our voter service team who organized this forum tonight. We have Wendy Hendry, Dan Hendry, Gail Nishimuru, Eleanor Yick, Amy Wu, and myself, Sophia Cao. And now, I will turn this meeting over to our moderator for tonight's forum, Eleanor Yick, who is also the Vice President and the Director of Voter Service.
Thank you, Sophia, and thank you, candidates and audience members, for coming tonight. As Sophia mentioned, my name is Eleanor Yick, and I'm one of our vice presidents this year, Director of Voter Services, and the moderator for tonight's candidate forum. I want to tell you a little bit about the League of Women Voters before we get started. The League of Women Voters is a national organization, a grassroots organization. When you join your local league, you automatically become a member of all levels: local, Bay Area, state, and national. This candidate forum is being sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Southwest Santa Clara Valley, which again covers the cities of Los Gatos, Montecito, Saratoga, Montecito, Campbell, and a segment of West San Jose. Next slide, please. The League has been empowering voters and defending democracy for over 100 years. The League has 2 distinct roles. It provides nonpartisan voter services and never endorses or opposes any political party or any candidate. But we do advocate when we have studied an issue. Some examples, next slide, of the League's voter service program are candidate forums, as we're experiencing tonight, pros and cons on ballot measures. Watch for our presentations in early October this year. We conduct voter registration, and we encourage all voters to go to votersedge.org, where you can get a personalized look at your own ballot before you have to vote. This webinar, as I mentioned, is being recorded and will be posted on all our league sites, YouTube channels, and other social media sites. Those of you in attendance tonight and our candidates, you will also be following or receiving a follow-up email with a link to the recording of this forum, and it can also be found on our website. Please share this widely. Now, before we begin, I would like to highlight for our audience some general information about this upcoming general election. Next slide. It is on November 8th, 2022. Your mail-in ballot will be mailed out starting the week of October 10th. You can return it in one of 3 ways. You can return it by the U.S. mail system, you can put it in a secure drop box, or you can visit a vote center in Santa Clara County. If you want to know where a vote center is, it will be in your voter guide, or you can go to the Santa Clara County Register of Voters website, which is listed here. You can also track your ballot there. You can check your registration status. I think everybody knows that if you have moved, you have to re-register. You can also check for your ballot where it says, "Where's my ballot.sos.ca.gov." Go ahead. Now, what is going to be on your ballot? You are going to be voting for some federal officials, for example, Congressional District 16, Anna Eshoo and Rishi Kumar. You'll be voting for candidates for state office. There will be 1 county-wide office, sheriff. There are some new assembly districts, 28 and 26. Some local town and city councils, some local school boards, some local water boards, and Saratoga residents, you will also be voting on a local measure on whether or not there should be term limits. Again, you can go to votersedge.org to get a personalized copy of your ballot. And now I am pleased to welcome and introduce the 5 candidates who are running for the 3 open seats on the Saratoga City Council. Candidates, when I call your name, would you please put on your video and so I can welcome you officially. The candidates are campaigning for a 4-year term and are listed in alphabetical order. First candidate, Belal Aftab. Good evening. Our next candidate, Bill Dalton. Welcome, Bill. Our next candidate, Chuck Page. Welcome, Chuck. Our next candidate, Priya Shastri. Welcome. And our 5th candidate, Zhao. Thank you, candidates. The candidates will be making their opening statements in reverse alphabetical order. After the opening statements, the candidates will respond to questions in a randomized order. Candidates, we so appreciate your willingness to participate in this virtual forum tonight. Turn on slide 9, please. Before we begin or go further, for our audience members, I would also like to highlight for you some ground rules the candidates have agreed to observe during this forum. The League supports the accepted norms of civil discourse, and in that light, the candidates have agreed to follow those norms that were outlined in a document they received. For example, candidates have agreed not to interrupt each other and to follow the allotted response times. Candidates are reminded they don't have to use the full time, but they are requested not to exceed the allotted time. Our timer for tonight's forum is League member Wendy Hendry, whom I would like to invite to put on her camera. Thank you very much, Wendy. Our timer, Wendy, will give each candidate reminders as they answer questions about the time remaining and when time has elapsed. For example, timer on. She will give them at the appropriate time, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and then stop. And candidates have been requested to end their sentence or their thought once the stop sign is displayed. This forum is scheduled to last approximately 1 hour. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to introduce her or himself by specifically answering this question: what qualifies you to be a Saratoga City Council member? After these opening statements, candidates will have 60 seconds to answer subsequent questions, which have been submitted through the registration process, obtained from social media sites, or developed by League members. I, as the moderator, will announce and enforce the time limits for each question. And lastly, the forum will close with the candidates speaking in a modified reverse order from the opening statement, answering this question: what question do you wish you had been asked tonight? Why? And how would you have responded? Candidates will have 90 seconds to complete their answer. And now let's begin. Again, we're going to start with each candidate's opening statement, answering this question: what specifically qualifies you to be a Saratoga City Council member? And we will be doing this in reverse alphabetical order. So our first candidate will be Zhao. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you all for being here tonight. I believe I'm the most qualified candidate for the City Council, not only because I have the leadership ability and skills, hands-on experience and knowledge, but also a solid track record of serving Saratoga. I have been a proud volunteer for nearly 2 decades, from Saratoga Elementary PTA Board, AYSO Volunteer Referee, Saratoga Rotary Art Show, Blossom Festival, to the 8-year on the Planning Commission, 4-year on the Board of Trustees of the Saratoga Cemetery District, and 4-year on the City Council, and 1 year as the mayor. My volunteer experience, my engineering analytical training, common sense approach, and my land use knowledge have enabled me to solve difficult problems and make sound decisions on tough issues. Believe it or not, I have always stayed calm, even during the most heated discussions, and built consensus to get things done. My track record of serving Saratoga demonstrates my passion and commitment to our community. My family has lived in Saratoga for 24 years. I'm committed to continue working hard with compassion and dedication to keep Saratoga the safest city in California, protect Saratoga's open space, parks, and trails, enhance the services we provide, and ensure the quality of life for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate will be Priya Shastri.
Respected members of the audience, I believe I am the most qualified candidate to be on the Saratoga City Council because I've been a resident of Saratoga since 2017. I have been privileged to be the Heritage Preservation Chair for the last 1.5 years. I am a Toastmaster and a Division Director for District 101 of Toastmasters International. I hold the Six Sigma Green Belt, so I focus on quality. Problem solving comes easily to me. I have been in the tech industry since 2004. I've been in the Bay Area since 2004. I have kids going to schools in the city of Saratoga. I know the problems of the people firsthand, and I believe I can be a good representative to voice their opinions and come up with sensible solutions for the problems that the city is facing today. We need fresh energy and enthusiasm to be put into this solving the problems that the city is facing currently. I believe I can bring the necessary energy to solve problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Chuck Page.
Good evening, and thank you very much for being here. And I'd like to first thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this. I believe that I'm the best candidate for Saratoga City Council because I probably got the most experience of anyone. I have served before. I served for 8 years. I was mayor twice. I've also served on some of the boards and commissions that are going to become very, very, very important in our future. I served for 2 years on the Valley Transportation Authority Board, the VTA board. And as many of you know, the housing element that we just submitted to the state provides for a lot more housing to be built. There will need to be ways to get people around. And we know that traffic is going to become a major issue, as well, it already is, but it's going to become worse. And so transit will become part of the solution for that. I've got the experience of having been a board member to be able to help provide those solutions and help work them out. I'm a team builder. I'm the person who can bring people together, and I've proven this again and again in many of the roles that I've had in this city. I've served as president of the Friends of the Saratoga Libraries, the Saratoga Rotary. I've served on multiple boards and commissions. I can't even begin to count. Most recently on the Wildfire Public Safety Task Force and the Public Safety Task Force before that, where we focused on trying to solve the crimes that are going on, the property crimes. I've also served at a state level, having served as chair of the State Environmental Policy Committee for the League of California Cities. I know Saratoga. I've been the president of our Chamber of Commerce for the last 2.5 years, and I welcome to serve again. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate, Bill Dalton.
Good evening. My wife and I have lived in Saratoga over 40 years. Our children attended public school and graduated from Saratoga High. I worked primarily at HP and Tandem as an engineer and manager in product development. My priorities are crime reduction. I support the automated license plate reader pilot and have submitted suggestions for evaluating the pilot. Preserving the semi-rural nature of Saratoga. I submitted several suggestions regarding SB 9 and the housing update. One was accepted. The RENA allocations should have been spread more equitably throughout the city versus concentrated north of Saratoga Avenue. The budget has too much wasteful and low priority spending while underfunding road maintenance by millions. I've made several suggestions to the current council. I've had discussions with city staff members. My campaign is self-funded. I have not and will not accept donations from organizations. I'm shocked by the amounts some candidates will be spending. Every decision I make will be what I believe is best for Saratoga. I thank you.
Thank you. And now our fifth candidate, Belal Aftab. Belal.
Thank you. And thank you to the League for hosting this event tonight. Now that the pandemic is ending, we have a different set of challenges facing the community. Prices are going up, traffic is back, the state is forcing us to rezone the city, and crime is unfortunately rising. So what makes me qualified to work on these challenges? I have local experience in our city in serving on the Traffic Safety Commission over the last 5 years, which I was elected to chair for the second time this year. I've worked closely with law enforcement during that time on tough safety problems that never have an easy answer, but still impact our safety on a daily basis. I also have to regularly navigate, pretty complicated state and federal laws alongside the commission that impact our streets in Saratoga and have to work with our neighboring cities to get things done. As we think about the financing and budgeting for the city in a time of rising prices, I have a lot of experience in the financial services sector. One of my first jobs was working at a municipal finance firm where I worked with cities and counties on figuring out the math for making their cities run and all the tough decisions that go along with that. But I think above all else, what makes me qualified for the city council are the community and neighborhood values I was raised with here in Saratoga. I think the beauty of the council is that it's 5 people. And so I like to think there's more than one qualified person here to be on the council and that we can all work together to do what's best for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. That concludes our opening round. We will now move on to questions submitted through the registration process or developed by League members. The candidates will have 60 seconds to respond to each question. The candidates will respond to these questions in a randomized order so that everybody has the opportunity to go first, middle, or last. And everybody has equal chances to listen and respond. I do want to alert our candidates that we do have 2 questions about housing, a couple of questions down. So comments about housing, you might want to save until we come to those questions. Our first question is, and Belal Aftab will be starting the process here. What do you think is the most pressing issue that Saratoga is facing? And what ideas do you have for resolving that issue? Mr. Aftab.
Oh, thank you, Eleanor. I think the most pressing issue facing Saratoga in the short, medium, and long term is what our city will look and feel like in the next couple of years. And the example there is really housing. I know we're going to get to that in a little bit in a few questions, but that really impacts the look, the feel of the city and what your experience is like. I think a corresponding feature of housing and thinking about what the city will look and feel like that's really closely tied to it is safety. And I think that's a critical thing that we will need to be investing in on an ongoing basis, because I think what makes Saratoga such an exciting place to live and for people to want to move to is the fact that the city's so safe and our schools are excellent. And so I think as we're thinking about building more housing and figuring out where that's going to be, we really need to figure out how we can maintain our safety, our quality of life, and all the schools maintaining their quality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next candidate, Zhao.
Thank you. I believe there are 3 top pressing issues that we need to be working on in the next couple of years. One is to protect our semi-rural environment. Saratoga is a great place. It's a beautiful environment. Many people move here. It's because of its open space, rural environment. So we need to definitely work hard and work with the regional to continue to maintain the local control. Second one is safety. Safety always be my priority. We actually allocated 28% of the city budget to contract sheriff services. Saratoga was rated as the safest cities in California. So I want to continue to maintain the high safety standards for our community. Last one I want to mention about commit to fiscal discipline. There will be some challenging times in the next couple of years. Many contracts and services are expected to increase up to 15%, and our revenues are not projected to grow much. So we need to definitely be fiscal conservative and provide the citizens transparency on all the budgets.
Thank you. Our next candidate, Chuck Page. And I do want to let the candidates know that if you need to have me repeat the question when we come to you, I'm happy to do that. Mr. Page?
Thank you. I think that the top issue that faces every city and what the council is most responsible for is the safety of its citizens, whether that be personal property, the property crimes that we see, or the wildfires that could affect us at any point in time. That's number one. The influx or the planned housing and the current, what's going to be under development in San Jose on the border of our city, and the Costco that's coming in are going to increase traffic dramatically. We have to find ways to get ahead of these projects and make sure that we are providing input to the organizations that not only approve them, but will be able to control the traffic. And unfortunately, these projects, they're approved by bodies that don't care about our traffic, but our traffic, Saratoga Ave, Prospect Road, are going to be impacted dramatically. We have to work in advance. We have to take a long road approach and go after this upfront and meet and grow with our neighboring cities. Thank you.
Thank you. Priya Shastri?
Saratoga's mission statement states that it's a community that is built to preserve the common good and help the citizens live in a safe and a secure environment. The number one problem, undoubtedly, I agree with my other worthy opponents here, is housing. Over the past 18 years that I've lived in the Bay Area, I've seen a lot of changes in the housing and the traffic problem. If you construct large housing complexes on high-density roads, we have to make sure that adequate infrastructure is provided for the new people who come in and are able to commute to work efficiently. The second problem is preserving open spaces. How much of the open spaces are we going to preserve? How much are we going to give away to build houses? If you consider a big jar and there are 5 problems, putting the bigger stones in would be very important. So priorities, setting priorities for housing and safety.
Thank you. And Bill Dalton?
That's my opinion. My opinion is zoning is the priority issue in the short term. It's my opinion we need an initiative to take zoning control from Sacramento. Talking with Sacramento is not going to solve the problem. In 2020, every candidate discussed this, but I've seen little action the last 2 years. The council must join other cities and actively support an initiative. A resolution is not enough. I personally will collect signatures to qualify an initiative. We can get this done. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton. And actually, you are going to be our first responder on the next question, which is, some decisions made about the emergency and ongoing responses to the COVID pandemic by town, city, and county governments, as well as school districts, were controversial in local communities. Please share your perspective on what would guide your decision-making in similar situations. Mr. Dalton?
Well, actually, I commented on the COVID restrictions on Nextdoor several times. I thought they were overly restrictive. Individuals need to take responsibility for their own behavior and be allowed to do what they wish unless they are damaging others. It was my opinion, that, for example, the 49ers should be allowed to have a football game if they can field a team. Residents should be allowed to attend if they wish. It's their choice. Too many times, government thinks government knows best for what's for everybody. And it's clearly indicated in many cases that government doesn't even believe what they espouse. Rules for thee and rules for me. For example, how many politicians violated the mask mandates? How many politicians gathered in groups? I will limit control to what's absolutely necessary. I
Thank you. Mr. Aftab, you're next.
Thank you, Eleanor. I think the reality of it is that these are always dynamic situations. So I think it is important to have a North Star of values that you're evaluating on. When it comes to COVID and situations like that, I would think of safety, quality of life, and just mental health in general, because across all of those three, we saw them be very different over the course of the pandemic, right? Now, a critical part of this is uncertainty and knowing what's actually going on and understanding the severity of a disease and the impact it may or may not have. And then in particular, when you think about a city like Saratoga, where we have a large older adult population, I think it's that much more important for us to be thoughtful and cautious around that. So I was actually supportive of the measures we took early on in 2020. I think they saved lives, and the Bay Area and Saratoga in particular had some of the highest vaccination rates in the country. I think it's something to be proud of. But I think now, as we're moving towards COVID just becoming a normal part of life, I think we need to balance the quality of life, returning to normal, and also just prioritizing kids' mental health, because I think that's also been affected during this time.
Thank you. Zhao.
Thank you. Pandemic has changed the way we live and the way we work. As a city council member, we have been following county health official guidelines and the health orders related to COVID-19. We understand the certainty and challenges that the residents and business felt. So as a council member, we try to keep residents well informed, provide all the necessary support to our residents and business owners. We have changed our city council meetings to online. We install parklets to help local business to stay open. We help provide business grants to help our local business survive and thrive. So I also work with a few nonprofit organizations to provide PPEs and masks and meals to the frontline responders and workers and seniors, provided tens of thousands of masks to firefighters, sheriff departments, nurses, hospitals, and senior centers. So I want to thank our community members for supporting our frontline workers. I'm so proud of being a member of this special community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Mr. Page.
Ms. Yick, would you please repeat the question? I just want to,
Sure.
seems to have gotten off a little topic there.
Sure. Some decisions made about the emergency and ongoing responses to the COVID pandemic by town, city, and county governments, as well as school districts, were controversial in local communities. Please share with us your perspective on what would guide your decision-making in a similar situation.
Thank you. First of all, it was a horrible situation for any city and the county too, because the mandates that came down were picked by or put in place by somebody that was not an elected official. So every elected official was pretty frustrated by the fact that they had no say in it. What I would base my decisions on going forward is my moral compass. What do I think is right for the general population? And you've got to base every situation. Every single situation is different, and you're going to have a different set of facts. But the key is to learn as much as you can about how everybody in your city, in our city, for example, would be impacted by the kind of mandate or whatever was put in place. Then I would use the input from the people and the community and the medical professionals, if it's a pandemic kind of thing, and put something in place. I chose to not take everything for granted and went after VTA and after Caltrans to get permission to put the parklets in, so our restaurants and businesses could stay in business during the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. And Priya Shastri.
Thank you. The COVID restrictions are imposed based on the number of cases in every county and in every state. So the restrictions that are sent out as a guideline to follow, so they would be the strictest to be sent out, according to me. But based on the number of cases that you see in your county or in your city or in your lane or in your home, you would follow the guidelines appropriately. So it's always, there is a inch of discretion that has to be applied to any guidelines that is given to you. So controversies are bound to happen. Your choice is to follow the restrictions based on your experience. If you live in a highly affected area, it's very important to be very serious about the restrictions that you want to follow. So if I was given a chance to answer the controversies, I would say that look at the cases in your area, monitor them, and accordingly follow the restrictions.
Thank you. Our next question, and actually we're going to begin with you, Priya Shastri. There is much talk in the media these days about the role of money in politics. Can you please share with your community your top 3 donors, both local and outside the community? And we'll begin with you again, Priya Shastri.
My top 3 donors are Priya Shastri, and Priya Shastri. I have been funding myself, and this is my attempt at succeeding in a leadership project. And I know that there is a lot of expenses involved. I maintain a spreadsheet with all the expenses that I have done so far, so that this is a reminder for me that if I do this project, this is what it entails. It also helps me to keep track of what am I spending, when am I spending, and how much is needed for forecasting. If the money in politics is very essential, it has become an area that is run like a business. And I do see that there can be improvements in the way the social media can be used effectively. If social media is used effectively, probably some of these expenses can be cut down. But that's
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Dalton.
My top 3 donors are me, myself, and I. My campaign is totally self-funded, and I won't accept donations from any organizations. And as I mentioned in my opening statement, I'm shocked by the amount I expect some of the candidates will be spending. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aftab.
Thank you, Eleanor. Yeah, it's very interesting to see the amount of money that's been run into races at every level in the country, including at the local level here in Saratoga. I've never accepted any outside interest groups and don't plan on accepting money from any outside interest groups. You asked the question if my top donors are. My biggest donor is me. I've funded, I think, 60% of my campaign. And then my top donors for people who are in Saratoga are family friends of mine. I can name names. Mother Uncle, Mother Kothari, I call him Mother Uncle because growing up with him. Ruzzy Uncle because I grew up with him and carpooled with his kids. And my friend Mother Uncle, his son Salman, who lives in San Francisco now, but grew up in Saratoga. So really honored to have their funding. And the other person who donated some money from outside of Saratoga at the same capacity as them is actually my Sunday school teacher growing up, who taught me in high school. We've maintained a really strong relationship, and he's been a mentor my whole life. And he's really, taught me to make decisions, like Chuck said, like using my moral compass.
Thank you very much. And Yan Zhao.
Most of my donations are from my friends and families. And I'm very thankful to my family who is so supportive. My top 3 donors is my uncle and my 2 girlfriends. And I have lived here for over 34 years. And I have volunteered for so many different organizations. And I have built a lot of good relationships, and by volunteer a lot of nonprofit organizations. So my friends are very supportive. When I told them I want to run for re-election, I got an overwhelmed support. So I will try my best to do a good job and to serve Saratoga.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Page.
Thank you. So like most of the people here, my biggest donor is me. And I did get a donation from a former Saratoga Rotary president, Saratoga resident, and he donated $150. So I do suspect that I'll get a few more dollars, and they will come from friends and family. Well, I don't have much family anymore here, but I do have, I've got a number of people that I've worked with in the past, and they've continually asked me to run, so I suspect that they will donate. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, and we are now moving on, as I mentioned earlier. The next two questions relate to housing, which is by far the topic that generated the most questions. And we tried to coalesce them into two meaningful questions. I'm going to ask the candidates to respond somewhat broadly to the question, the first one, because the second one becomes much more specific. Okay, and we're going to begin with Mr. Page on this question. So the first one is, given the many state mandates that have been enacted, what ideas or even philosophy do you have for resolving the housing crisis in Saratoga, specifically related to affordability for essential workers, density, and locations throughout the city? Mr. Page.
Thank you. So you mentioned a crisis. I haven't quite seen the crisis here in Saratoga. Would it be nice for everybody to live in a community that's exactly the same as every other community? I guess it would be. I think that the state has taken some horrible steps in mandating what they did for the cities. And I think that one of the things that when I was on the council before, we worked with the League of California Cities to do one thing, and that was maintain local control. Somewhere along the line, that went out of hand. It just went off the rails, and it's not even considered by the state anymore. They just say, we've got to do something and we're just going to mandate. I think that we should look very hard and work very closely with BTA and other transportation authorities to work towards transit-oriented development, because we not only want to worry about the housing, but we've got to worry about the environment. And the more more homes we build in Saratoga, the more cars we put on the road, which means it's more greenhouse gases. Not everyone today has an electric vehicle. And even the electric vehicles are being created, they're being fueled by something that's not necessarily created here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate will be Priya Shastri.
Can you please repeat the question?
Sure. Given the many state mandates that have been enacted, what ideas or even philosophy do you have for resolving the housing crisis in Saratoga, specifically related to affordability for essential workers, density, and location throughout the community?
Resolving the housing crisis is like solving the world hunger problem. It is not an easy problem to solve. Let's face it, we all have to collectively put our brains together to find a solution. I have a lot of friends and family here living in Saratoga, and we have discussed this amongst ourselves for the most of the times that we meet. Putting the houses in the highly populated or high traffic areas is one of the solutions, because you can have a transit bus that can go to different places from that one single location. Coming to serving the moderate and low income groups, there are different classes of people in that. So if it's a nursing facility and there are nurses living, then it might be better to streamline and build ADUs in the housing complexes. But again, it comes to every individual on what he or she thinks is the best solution.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Dalton?
Well, I think I already indicated what my primary tact would be. We need to take control from Sacramento. Dealing with Sacramento is not going to solve the housing crisis in Saratoga. The housing crisis in Saratoga is created by Sacramento, the primary problem. The affordability issue, I think we should streamline ADUs to the extent possible. I'm willing to consider some development of affordable housing on city property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aftab?
Thank you, Eleanor. I think the prospect of the state continuing to take away local control is only like that train's left the station. If you take a look at the bills that were even passed in this session in Sacramento, it feels like there's only more control to be revoked. And so if there's one thing I've known my whole life in Saratoga, and my family moved here when I was 2, is that change is the constant. It's a change in life. We were here before 85 was built. And even when 85 came, that also changed some of the dynamic of the city. So as I think philosophically about how I want to approach these questions, I really want to preserve our city and its history, our semi-rural nature, our really quaint and beautiful areas like the Village. I think we need a fair and balanced approach that takes into account not overly burdening certain portions of the city and making sure that that's spread out. I think it's important for housing essential workers. I grew up in a neighborhood where there were police officers and firefighters, and they aren't there anymore. And so I think it's really critical for us to come together as a community, solve this, and really figure out what the next version of Saratoga will look like. And hopefully we have a much stronger say in that.
Thank you. And Zhao?
Thank you. Well, we all understand the need to address the affordable housing crisis in the Bay Area and throughout the state. The state or the city may have different ways of thinking of addressing this problem. But state, every year, they mandate the housing element update. For this year, Saratoga is assigned with 1,700 new housing units to be built in the next 8 years. Even though we agree with the need for the affordable housing, but we don't agree with the RHNA number that was assigned to the city. But as the city, we have to comply with the state law. So during the last couple months, we have been working on the housing element. It has created a lot of anxiety for our residents. Many people are very afraid of this high density housing come to our city. We all know Saratoga, it's known for its rural environment, and we all want to protect our quality of life here to keep it open space and parks. So we need to continue to work with state, and we want to continue to maintain the local control on housing.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to come to the next question about housing, which is very specific. And we got many questions about this. Now, more specifically, what is your position on the Saratoga Retirement Community Expansion Plan presented by Pacific Retirement Services? Do you support it, or do you support the alternative expansion plan offered by the residents of the Saratoga Retirement Center? And please explain your answer, why or why not. And we're going to begin with you, Zhao.
Thank you, Eleanor. As the current council member, I cannot comment on this project, but I can share some of my thoughts with you. I have been to Saratoga retirement community a few times and have met and talked with community members there. It is always important to me that we protect our open space, trees, and preserve heritage buildings and to maintain the quality of life for all. Just recently, the City Council reconfirmed our city's value statement. Here, I just want to read out just real quick. Saratoga is a community where the natural beauty of the city and its hillside is preserved, while historic assets are preserved and promoted, where value is placed on attractive, well-maintained, and well-planned community with a small-town residential atmosphere. Our city design guidelines and design findings have served us well in the past. I'm confident we will continue to do a good job to maintain our beautiful environment.
Thank you. Mr. Page.
Thank you. I would love to answer this question, but if I'm elected and I've told you what I feel now, I could very well not be able to vote on this. So what I will say is that I believe that every alternative needs to be looked at, and the people need to have the opportunity to not only describe a better solution, describe the solution they want, talk about the whys, and all of this needs to be out in the open, publicly discussed, so that we not only understand how the retirement community that lives there today are affected, but how are other people that live around there or the streets? What are the other impacts that are going to be unintended by one solution versus another. What are those impacts and how can we best alleviate them if they are severely bad impacts, or if it's a positive for everybody, then we look to do that. I believe that it's going to take some compromise, and I believe that every alternative needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Priya Shastri.
I have visited the Saratoga retirement community once, and I'm very impressed by its beauty currently. It preserves open spaces and there is no pollution. The two proposals that are presented right now for the Saratoga retirement community needs more analysis and more data. It is proposing to construct more houses in the current location, which may not be completely justifiable. So we have to look at more data in order to decide whether to go with one proposal or the other. But in my view, giving the peace of mind and the health for the seniors who are living in that retirement community is very important. So their voices need to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dalton.
At the moment, I'm not prepared to support either of the proposals. I haven't visited the community, the retirement community. I will be doing so in the near future. And until then, I'm not prepared to take any position with regard to either plan. I will note that this was a big issue at the 2020 forum. I'm surprised that nothing has been resolved at this point in time. Not even the environmental impact report has been done. I asked the other day to see the report or when the report would be available. I was told there is no scheduled date. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Aftab.
Thank you, Eleanor. Similar to the other candidates, given this is a quasi-judicial process, I can't give a direct answer in terms of which one we would pick over the other, but I can comment sort of from a philosophical perspective how I would approach this. Similar to what Chuck said, I think we should be thinking about all the alternatives at any given point in time. And if I was to think of several values that matter to me in the context of a decision like this, I would say community safety, dialogue, transparency, and certainty. Transparency is making sure that everyone understands what's on the table and what's being proposed. Certainty is understanding the timeline for all of that. For whatever plan you do choose, are we talking a 3-year process or a 3-month construction process? Safety, so making sure that whatever is chosen, really protects the residents. Thinking about what trails do or don't come in. I think we need to be really mindful there. And last but not least, just dialogue, making sure that we're all talking as a community, and that decisions aren't being made by people that live completely outside of Saratoga.
Thank you. And now I'm going to insert something that our timers might be concerned about, but please don't be concerned about, because this is a yes or no answer, so you don't have to time. And we're going to begin with you, Mr. Aftab. Do you support the current measure that's going to be on the ballot regarding term limits in Saratoga?
No, and I'd love the opportunity to comment on it.
Thank you. Our next person would be Yan Zhao. Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Chuck Page?
No.
No. Priya Shastri?
Yes.
And Mr. Dalton?
Absolutely don't support it.
Okay, thank you. And now I'm going to move on to another quick question that will be just 30 seconds for our timers, kind of a little break from some of the heavy questions we've been dealing with. What's an interesting fact about you that somebody probably doesn't know, or most people even don't know? And we're going to begin with Mr. Dalton.
Well, I doubt that anyone on the council or the other candidates know that I was born overseas. I lived overseas until I was 15 years old, although my parents were American citizens. And of course, I'm an American citizen as a result.
Thank you. Mr. Aftab.
I think something most folks to know about me is that I minored in English in college and almost ended up majoring in it. I love to read. I love literature. I took every Shakespeare course available at the time at Berkeley. And so if you ever want to talk about Shakespeare or different plays or different Renaissance literature, it's kind of a nerdy topic of mine. I love to get into, and on any given point in time, I'm probably reading a different play or two.
Thank you. And Zhao?
Yes, I'm pretty confident and nobody knows about this. I have been start playing bridge for a few years, and I am proud to say I got qualified to play National North American Bridge Championship this year in both pair and team. So it was a proud moment to get qualified.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Page?
I think that there's very few people who know that I graduated with a mathematics degree and I've worked for a garbage company.
Okay, thank you. And Priya Shastri?
Very few people would know that I am an inherent admirer of music. I make it a point to dedicate 30 minutes of my everyday routine to just listen to music, calm down and relax. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to move on to another question that's not quite as light, and we will go back to the 60-second time limit on this. And we'll begin with you, Ms. Shastri. How can Saratoga abate the danger of wildfires, especially in the hillside areas?
Wildfires are unpredictable. Constant monitoring and patrolling by the fire safety department in those areas which are marked as high prone is important, especially if there are fires happening in other areas of the forest areas. It's very important that we patrol our county, our city, so that we are not affected by those fires that are happening in the background. But being alert, being responsive to any call that comes as a fire hazard should be the #1 priority to tackle this problem.
Thank you. Mr. Dalton?
There's grant money available to residents to help mitigate the danger to their property. And I would also state that the hillsides are not appropriate for major development projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aftab?
Thank you, Eleanor. This is a really important one. I mean, I remember 2 years ago when the whole city was put on notice to potentially evacuate, and our hearts go out to all those affected in California right now by wildfires. I think there's a lot that we can be doing here, especially in the hillsides. Some neighborhoods have already started putting together fire watch neighborhood groups, and similar to how the city invested in neighborhood watch across Saratoga, I think it's important for us to get that up and running so that neighbors are communicating with one another about making sure their homes and their surrounding areas have enough defensible space to make sure that they're protected. I think we should think about what other communication technology we can invest in. I remember all of the notifications we get from Santa Clara County can be pretty unreliable, and we live in Silicon Valley. I like to think we can come up with something better, and especially something that's better that serves our older adult community. And then last but not least, thinking through education for the broader community and making sure that we're not just sending notices in the mail, but can we put together more effective video content and other ways of educating the public on protecting their homes.
Thank you so much. Zhao?
This is a very important question. Half of Saratoga is in the hillside and at risk for a wildfire. So managing wildfire risk is so important to our community. As mayor last year, I worked with the West Valley mayors and our state representative, obtained $7 million for fire prevention program. We need to work together as a region to mitigate our risks. There's a new ordinance we just passed that requires a 5-foot non-flammable buffer around the new structures in the WE area. As a property owner, we should bring our buildings up to compliance with fire code standards, form fire-wise communities, remove dead trees, build defensible space for our homes. Everyone needs to do our parts to be wildfire prepared. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Page?
Thank you. I think that in terms of the key part of your question is prevention. Monitoring doesn't help. What we've got to do is get out there and make sure that the undergrowth is cut back. We can't let our wild forest just grow and grow and grow. We've got to go in and we've got to cut out the undergrowth so that you don't have the ladder fuel to create the fire that goes into the trees. We never know when that next lightning strike is going to hit. And as former chair of our Saratoga's Wildfire Public Safety Task Force, I can tell you we looked at all kinds of options. The best one to prevent this and happening again is to cut the fuel away from your house and then cut out all that ladder fuel out of the forest so that they don't have fuel to be able to ignite the treetops, which then it just goes crazy. And we saw that in the CZU fire and almost every other wildfire that's struck by, that's caused by natural causes. So let's get out there and help our neighbors and trim some trees and cut some growth out and work with the current organizations that we do to keep funding them so that they can get out there and do it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'm going to move on to the last community question, and then the very last question will end the forum tonight. And our last question will begin with you, Mr. Page. What ideas do you have to incentivize Saratogans to reduce greenhouse gases?
This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And there's no single answer. There's no one idea. I think that everybody needs to do their part, and it's every aspect of what we do. You know, greenhouse gases are affected every time a seedling grows out of the ground, every time a child is born, every time that we get a new pet. We all do this. So what we need to do is to monitor our behavior, try to make sure that each of us are doing our part to limit the amount of greenhouse gases that we're producing. Sometimes for some people, that's an electric vehicle, but we've got to make sure that our electrical grid can support it too. I think that we each just need to be responsible, and there isn't a whole lot of incentives. I mean, the city can throw money at it or something else. We need to take responsibility and do the right thing for our own environment, for our futures.
Thank you. And Priya Shastri?
Greenhouse gases are the #1 reason of pollution that happens in the city. And you do see that some days are really cloudy and there is fog in the air when you wake up in the morning. And that can make you uneasy. My solutions in order to prevent greenhouse gases is to reduce the number of commutes that every household does. Combine your grocery shopping, combine your kids picking up together in one trip, save the number of trips that your car undergoes. Maybe think about alternative ways of fuel, make use of the sun energy, and think of efficient ways to solve that problem. Have more green spaces around your home in order to, and well-maintained, of course, in order to reduce the greenhouse effect and increase the oxygen in the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dalton?
Conservation, conservation. Many of the older homes in the city, I expect, have yet to be insulated. Both homes, which I've owned, one in San Jose, one in Saratoga, were totally uninsulated when I purchased them. Good insulation will help conserve a lot of energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aftab?
The first idea I have is something we've actually been working on the last couple of years. In 2020, I appointed a subcommittee in the Traffic Safety Commission to focus on safe routes to school, which basically works with every school in the city of Saratoga to redesign the surrounding area to make it safer for kids to walk and bike to school, to make it safer, but also to take cars off the road. And so I think this is something, it's a kind of program that we should be investing in and publicizing. The commission approved it this summer, the council approved it a few weeks ago, and I think it will be really important for us to fund that going forward to make sure that we're actually implementing those recommendations that were made by our incredible subcommittee. Separately, I actually think we can have fun with it, right? I think there's more things we can do in terms of, I really trust and love young people in Saratoga, and we have a lot of schools. There's no reason we can't make a game or contest out of it to see how many kids are biking to school. And so I think there's a lot we can do there. And last but not least, I think just doubling down on the city's climate action plan and making sure that we're assessing how much we're emitting as a city, and then seeing what measures we can take to mitigate that.
Thank you. And Zhao?
Thank you. I'm very glad to report that Saratoga has been purchasing 100% renewable electricity from Silicon Valley Clean Energy for all of our city facilities since 2017. We just passed the Safety Route to School Master Plan, which we started in 2018. This is a great plan. We encourage kids to bike and walk to school, and encourage residents to bike, and also encourage people to use electrical vehicle. The city has installed the charger at the city hall as well as the public library. As a city council member in 2020, we just adopted Saratoga's first climate action plan, in which we have a very specific strategy to reduce greenhouse gas till year 2030. Also, as a city, we have required new commercial buildings to exceed 24 energy efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you. And now this will be your last question and your closing statement. You will have 90 seconds to respond to: what question do you wish you had been asked tonight and why? And what your answer would have been. Again, you will have 90 seconds to respond, and we're going to go to a modified reverse order from the opening statements, and we'll begin with Mr. Aftab.
All right, thank you, Eleanor. I think the question that wasn't asked tonight that I'm curious about is, what are we doing about the traffic, right? The traffic is back to pre-pandemic levels. And given all of the change coming around the city, we have a Costco in the works. We have a lot of, Whole Foods at where the El Paseo Lucky's used to be, and a lot of other development that's going to be happening inside and adjacent to the city. How do we think about the impact that's going to be having on the city of Saratoga? And so when I think about traffic safety, I think of it in two lenses. I think there's a proactive approach and then a reactive approach. We have the means and the measures for reactive responses when neighbors feel like their neighborhoods are already at risk because of people speeding too quickly. And we have a variety of fix-it forms as well as the Traffic Safety Commission, which they can come to get those sorts of concerns addressed. But my question is, what are we doing proactively to address that? I think we've started to take some big strides in that direction. I think safe routes to school is an important one. Another important one that's going to be coming in front of the council in the coming weeks is the local road safety plan, where we basically, as part of the Traffic Safety Commission, identified the five areas in Saratoga where you have the most accidents and injuries. And so actioning that plan, I think, will be really important. But we really need to make sure that, given all the changes that are coming, and given some of the police shorting staffages that we have right now, that we're taking proactive measures that empower residents to put in place measures that will protect their streets, protect their quality of life, and make sure we're continuing to make Saratoga an incredible place to live. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I would be honored to have your vote.
Thank you. Our next candidate, Priya Shastri.
The one question that I would like to be asked, that I've not been asked, is what have I learned at the end of this candidate forum? At the end of this candidate forum, I feel I'm extremely privileged to be a candidate this year for elections on November 8, 2022. By being in the Heritage Preservation Commission for the past 1.5 years, I think I bring in a lot of value in terms of volunteering and learned about teamwork in the commission. Solving problems requires teamwork, dedication, and follow through till the end. So I believe in following this principle of teamwork, following through, and dedication till the end. That would be my goal while solving any problem when I get elected into the city council. Given a chance, I can bring in fresh energy and enthusiasm to solve the problems and bring in sensible solutions for the problems that the city is facing today. I humbly seek your vote in this election on November 8, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Page.
Thank you. Sorry, a little trouble with the mute button there. I think that the question I would have liked to have been asked is, what is it that you learned during your first term on the city council that you would bring to this one? And I would say that it's something that I learned earlier than on my time in the council, but my time in the council really just magnified it. It's how do you solve a problem? And how do you make sure that you gather the input to be able to make the best decision to solve a problem? My approach has always been that if you come to me with an issue, that's one side of it. There's another viewpoint directly opposite behind me, 180 degrees away. Then there are a lot of people that may be impacted by that decision, and it may not just be people, but buildings and roads and other things. And I've got to take a look and try to understand as much as I can from each of those perspectives. Only at that point will I be able to make the best possible decision. And that's what helped me do things like be able to bring solar to our city, become chair of the State Environmental Policy Committee, do the things that we as Saratogans, this small little town in the West Valley, this bucolic little city, we didn't have that kind of opportunity before. But I worked like heck because this is it's a long-term approach to problems. We can't just take a short-term approach to what we're doing, but we have to understand things as best we can and then help everyone to come together, share their input, and then make the best decision possible. And sometimes that decision doesn't leave everybody happy. We got to just do it though. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dalton?
I would have liked a question regarding solutions for the coming difficulty in balancing the budget. It's my opinion, first, we need to optimize the use of funds we have to determine the extent of the problem. As I mentioned previously, the council has underfunded road maintenance by millions per year. Yet the current budget has $500,000 for a backup generator and EV chargers at the community center. In closing, I hope the audience has gained a good understanding of my thinking regarding the issues Saratoga faces. Should I be elected to the council, I will listen to the residents and work with the other council members to arrive at the best decision possible for Saratoga. Saratoga is my only priority. I have no ambitions regarding other political office. At the 2020 forum, everyone discussed transparency. If you have a question, email it to me. My address is on the Saratoga City election page, and I'll give you a straightforward answer. You have a right to know exactly what each candidate thinks on any issue. I don't want voters to be surprised by any vote I make on the council. Let's work together. I ask for your vote. Lastly, I thank the League of Women Voters for organizing this event.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Dalton. Thank you. And Zhao.
Thank you, Eleanor. I'm the only candidate who is currently serving on the city council and have helped manage the crisis during the pandemic. The one question I wish I was asked is what I have done to help our city in the past 4 years. Despite challenges faced during the pandemic, we strive to provide quality services to our residents, ensure the city's finances in good standing. As mayor last year, I created a few new programs to help keep residents safe, better connected, and well-informed. I worked with neighborhood watch leaders on safety programs, such as the ultimate license plate reader, and launched the annual safety fair. I started the monthly mayor's office hour at the farmers market to connect with our residents and to listen to their concerns. When hate against Asian Americans communities has increased around the world, I organized and led a Stop Asian Hate rally, joined by 5 other cities with over 1,000 community members in attendance. Together, we can protect and celebrate our diverse community. I have truly enjoyed serving our community. It has been my honor to represent you. I'm here again, respectfully asking for your vote to re-elect me to the City Council. I'm Zhao, number 5 on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank each and every one of our candidates tonight. We, the League, wish you well in your campaign and greatly respect your candidacy. We understand and respect people who are willing to step up and take a leadership role in their local communities to make life better for everyone. The residents of Saratoga should be very proud of this slate of candidates. They have some difficult decisions to make. You'll be voting for 3 candidates out of the 5 that you have met tonight. So again, thank you so much for your participation tonight. We're going to be showing a couple of more slides reminding our audience about the upcoming general election, which you are welcome to stay for, or if you have other commitments, candidates, please feel free to go at this point in time. But the last reminder that I want to give to the audience is, again, we have a general election coming up on November 8th. We encourage all people to be active and informed voters. Continue on, please, to the next slide. One of the places that we strongly encourage all citizens to go to for unbiased, fact-based information, and I hope each one of our candidates tonight has participated in Voters Edge. People can go in there, you can look up the candidates, you can look up the measures, you're going to have that term limits measure on your ballot. You can learn information about campaign financing. All you have to do is either enter your street address or your zip code, and your ballot will come up that you can look at. Go ahead, please. Remember, everyone, democracy is not a spectator sport. We welcome you to join us. We are always looking for new members in our league, for members of the community who are interested in protecting our democracy, promoting it, and encouraging everybody to be a participant. So again, I thank our audience members. I do want to remind you, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to a recording of this candidate forum. And candidates, we encourage you to also publicize that so that members of the community who could not attend tonight can still go online and listen to this candidate forum. So with that, I would like to officially close the candidate forum. And again, thank you everyone for attending. Good night.